A $500 million stadium became a bus depot. Inside Brazil's Minas Gerais, 72,000 seats once waited for World Cup crowds. Years later, two obscure clubs played there while barely 100 people watched. Voices bounced across empty plastic rows, inside a building named after one of football's greatest artists. Outside, buses parked where fans were supposed to gather. This was not some ruin from another century. It was built for the 2014 World Cup, with costs reported between $550 million and $900 million. 1 month of glory left behind decades of maintenance. Here is the trap. The World Cup produces billions. The final in 2022 pulled nearly 1.5 billion viewers. Yet the places building the stage often lose money. So who actually gets paid? The public story sounds irresistible. Spend now. Build stadiums, airports, roads, rail links, hotels, and security systems. Then tourists arrive, jobs appear, cameras show the world your country, and the investment pays for itself. That pitch wins votes. But the World Cup is not just a tournament. It is a temporary economy controlled by one organization. FIFA, based in Switzerland, owns the event, chooses the host, sells the rights, and writes the terms. The host does not simply welcome football. It accepts a financial structure. That structure matters. When people ask whether hosting makes money, they often assume the host keeps the money the tournament creates. It does not. The biggest revenue streams travel somewhere else, while the bills stay local. That is where the real game begins. Start with FIFA's side of the ledger. In the 4-year cycle ending with Qatar 2022, FIFA reported revenue of $7.5 billion. That was a record, and the biggest engine was broadcasting. Networks paid more than $3 billion for the right to show the matches. Then came sponsorships. The logos wrapped around the pitch, press rooms, backdrops, tickets, websites, and every official moment. Then, hospitality packages, premium seats, catered boxes, ticketing, licensing, official merchandise, and games. Follow the cash. Broadcast revenue goes to FIFA. Sponsorship revenue goes to FIFA. Ticketing runs through FIFA. Even the official resale market has reportedly given FIFA around 30% of the resale price when one fan sells to another. Advertising space inside stadiums is controlled centrally too. The host gets something else. It gets the obligation to prepare the country. Cities handle transportation, crowd control, policing, fan zones, medical standby, cleanup, traffic closures, and security. Sports economist Andrew Zimbalist has described the split bluntly. FIFA captures the revenue, while host cities absorb costs that can pass $100 million per city. That is not a normal partnership. Imagine a concert promoter arriving in your town. The promoter keeps the tickets, merchandise, broadcast rights, and sponsorships. Your city pays for police, barricades, ambulances, and road closures. Then the tour leaves. The World Cup leaves concrete. To bid, countries also promise FIFA tax breaks. Germany's 2006 bid included about $270 million in tax exemptions.
FIFA and major sponsors can operate largely tax-free during the tournament,
meaning money generated inside the host nation can exit without the usual public cut. That is a powerful deal. FIFA is officially a non-profit association under Swiss law. It does fund football development worldwide. But non-profit does not mean poor. At the end of 2022, FIFA's reserves were nearly $4 billion. Its president, Gianni Infantino, received compensation worth about $3.9 million that year, including a larger bonus after Qatar's tournament. Non-profit describes status, not scale. By the end of 2021, before the first match in Qatar, FIFA had already secured more than $6 billion of its target income for that cycle. The product was sold before the tournament even began. The scoreboard was secondary. Now look at the host's side. Researchers at the University of Toronto reviewed recent tournaments and found that 12 of the last 14 World Cups left host cities with net economic losses. The promises were huge before kickoff. The receipts were weaker after the crowds left. That pattern is old. The 1994 World Cup, across the United States, is remembered as a triumph. It helped plant top-level football deeper into a major sports market, and FIFA benefited enormously. Yet later estimates placed cumulative economic losses for host cities as high as $9.3 billion. A success can still drain its stage. Why does the promise fail so often? One reason is displacement. World Cup visitors do spend money, but many replace people who would have visited anyway. Regular tourists avoid inflated hotel prices, congestion, security checks, and uncertainty. Sometimes they are blocked entirely. During Qatar 2022, visitors without match tickets were restricted from entering during parts of the tournament. It was partly one type of traveler replacing another. Then come the stadiums. FIFA requires world-class venues. Countries bid by promising them, even where long-term demand is weak. The result can be a white elephant, huge, expensive, impressive, and nearly useless once the ceremony ends. Brazil 2014 became the warning label. The country spent about $3 billion on 12 stadiums, much of it public money. Mané Garrincha in Brasilia became the most haunting example. It cost roughly 3 times its original estimate, reaching between $550 million and $900 million, depending on the accounting. Then, reality arrived. Brasilia had no major professional club capable of filling 72,000 seats week after week. After the World Cup, parts of the stadium were rented as offices for civil servants. The parking lot became a depot for city buses. That was not the only case. Arena Pantanal in Cuiabá cost more than $200 million. 7 months after hosting 4 World Cup matches, it was shut for emergency repairs because of leaks and construction problems. Other stadiums hosted children's parties, religious services, weddings, and anything else that could offset maintenance. In one venue, homeless families sheltered in unused locker rooms. So is hosting always a financial disaster? Germany complicates the answer. The 2006 World Cup is remembered as the model. Germany used many existing stadiums, organized popular fan zones, and staged a tournament that reshaped the country's global image. Even that did not clearly profit. Studies later found modest measurable gains. One careful estimate counted about 700,000 extra overnight hotel stays and roughly $900 million in net tourism income against around $1 billion spent. Economists reviewing the impact argued that common claims about tourism and retail boosts were often weak and sometimes wrong. Germany bought something else. It bought mood, visibility, reputation, and a few weeks of national confidence. Those can matter. But they are not the same as cash returns, and that distinction changes everything. Pride has a price. Qatar pushed the question into harsher territory. In 2010, FIFA awarded the 2022 World Cup to a country smaller than Connecticut, where summer temperatures can approach 120 degrees Fahrenheit. It had little existing stadium infrastructure for an event of that size, so it built. The estimated total spend connected to preparation reached around $200 billion. Most of that was not just stadiums. It included a new metro, airport expansion, hotels, highways, and broader national projects. The tournament itself used 8 stadiums, but buildings require workers. Qatar's population was under 3 million, and roughly 2 million were migrant workers. They formed the backbone of the labor force behind stadiums, roads, hotels, and transport systems. Many came from South Asia and poorer labor-exporting countries, often under conditions criticized for years by rights groups. The human bill surfaced slowly. In 2021, The Guardian reported that more than 6,500 migrant workers from 5 countries had died in Qatar since the bid was awarded. That averaged roughly a dozen deaths per week. The report used government records from workers' home countries and said the true total was probably higher. Qatar disputed the framing. Officials argued many deaths were not directly linked to stadium construction. The exact accounting remains contested. But the scale of vulnerability, debt, heat, and dependence on migrant labor was impossible to ignore. Then came the comparison. The total prize money for teams at Qatar 2022 was $440 million. Amnesty International and other rights groups called on FIFA to set aside the same amount, $440 million, for workers and families. The number was deliberate. Pay the builders like the players. That demand exposed a missing column. FIFA's $7.5 billion revenue report could list broadcast rights, sponsorships, tickets, hospitality, and licensing. It could not fully capture what was paid through bodies, risk, separation, and grief. The cost still existed. This is why the World Cup is more than sports economics. It is a machine where one party owns the premium revenue, another carries infrastructure risk, and workers often absorb the pressure hidden beneath patriotic marketing. The phrase is simple: private gains, public costs. You see the same shape elsewhere. Olympic venues decay after closing ceremonies. Cities subsidize stadiums for professional teams, often with promises of jobs, visitors, and renewal. The language changes. The mechanism survives. Spend public money now. Trust future benefits later. Then measure the gap. That structure is active right now. The 2026 World Cup is being staged across the United States, Canada, and Mexico. It is the largest edition ever, expanding from 32 teams to 48, with more than 100 matches. FIFA is projecting record cycle revenue, with estimates above $13 billion. Host cities still carry major costs. Security, transport, policing, fan management, and local logistics do not disappear because the tournament grows. In fact, scale usually makes them heavier. The question is whether the money kept locally matches the burden carried locally. History gives a warning. None of this means the games are fake or joy is meaningless. The emotion is real. A country may decide that prestige, unity, visibility, and global attention are worth paying for. But that is not profit. The danger begins when feelings are sold as financial returns. Words like exposure, prestige, tourism boost, and putting us on the map should trigger one question: who keeps the revenue and who pays if the forecast fails? If those are different groups, the ending is usually visible before kickoff. Return to Brasilia, a 72,000-seat stadium, hundreds of millions spent, about 100 spectators for a match almost nobody came to see. Buses parked outside a monument built for a month of global attention. The party was real. The money moved on. The bill stayed behind, wearing a national flag.